Congratulations, you guys, for being here at the Dallas International Film Festival. So tell me a little bit about this documentary. I mean, it sounds really fascinating, something that tugs at the heart and the soul. So tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it's called Signs of Humanity, and it's about a man named Willie Baronet, who's a professor at SMU. And for 23 years, he's been purchasing the signs that homeless people have, and he's been collecting these signs and doing art installations with them. And they took a trip. Eamon can tell about the trip because he was on it. I was the producer who helped raise the funds for the trip, and but they took a trip across country, and I'll let him take over from here.
Yeah, last summer we spent 31 days visiting 24 cities across the United States, buying signs from the homeless. And then that culminated in an art exhibit in New York City, which is all part of the documentary. It was quite a phenomenal experience.
So what did these people? What were their reactions when you came up to them and said, "We want to buy your signs"?
There were lots of folks that thought Willie was kidding. They were like, "Oh, this must be a joke," and then he paid them, and they were amazed. There were some folks who have sold signs before, and there were some who broke down and cried and said, "Wow, you recognize me, you saw me, you want this sign." And those are the stories that really hit you the hardest.
And what I loved about it is Willie noticed the very first time he ever bought a sign how the body language of the homeless person changed, because it was a negotiation instead of just giving the person money. It was actually a negotiation. You have something I want, and I have something you want. And he noticed that people had more respect for themselves, and that was a charming thing that we saw over and over again. They were surprised, and they'd say, "You want to buy my sign?" But then it became something much deeper, and that's why we called it Signs of Humanity, because it was humanity. You're human, I'm human, we're all in this together.
And what were some of the signs? I'm sure there were a lot of clever signs, because I know you can drive around and you see a lot of interesting stuff. Tell me one of the things that stuck out in your
There was one that was based on a Pringle, and he had the Pringles box, and he had the eyes cut out so we could hold it up. The same man had a sign that said "Visions for Pizza," and he said whenever he held that sign up out of 7-Eleven, he always got a pizza every time. One said that a family was kidnapped by ninjas and he needed to raise money to go and fight to get training to bring them back. So, a lot of them had humor, and then some just had desperation. One of the most stunning ones was one that was in ink pen. It said "Spare change."
That's one of my favorites. The other thing that was interesting is the signs sort of reflected the city. For example, in Detroit, there were no funny signs, because in Detroit, they're having so much trouble there, and they're so desperate. There were no funny signs. But in LA, lots of funny signs.
LA, you got the whole
gamut. You got everything in LA. So that was an interesting part of it.
So you went to some of the bigger cities. Were there any smaller communities that you would go to, or just
We tried to hit major cities because that's where the homeless tend to congregate.
Yeah.
But whenever we saw a sign, Willie would stop and buy it. And one of the tricks was he wanted to keep the interaction organic. He didn't want the camera crew to run out and just get in front of them.
Yeah.
So that was a real challenge in filming the documentary, was giving him his space to have that interaction, because that's part of the process for him. That's part of the art for him in the same respect. So, following him was really a run and gun guerrilla style documentary shoot.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure were you at all scared about your safety or anything like that?
I would say, when I first started the trip, I thought about that, because we were on Skid Row in Los Angeles, and those kinds of areas are dangerous and whatnot. But in my experience, most of the homeless are not dangerous folks. I never felt that I was in danger. They're really just people like you and me that have nowhere to go. They're looking for someone to recognize them and just take a minute and either spare some change or share a moment, say hello.
And also, many of them are actually the ones in danger. They are preyed upon very often. So that's one thing I learned. I also was a little bit nervous about going. I went to 4 of the of the cities, not all the cities. And I was a little nervous. And by the end of the first round, I saw that just what Eamon said, that they're just like you and me. They're just down on their luck, and they're just don't have a safety net that you probably have and I probably have, that I do have, and you know.
Is there any, was there any follow-up as far as maybe showing some of these people the movie, or maybe somebody contacted you afterwards? I mean, is there anything like that?
Willie stays in touch with several of the folks that he encounters. He often gives out his phone number. One of the ladies we met along the way called him about 40 times along our trip, and she still calls him occasionally to check in. He has lots of email interactions with folks. He tries his best to remain connected with them, and there are some really touching stories that came from those interactions where folks said, hey, you recognize me, and it kind of changed my life.
You know, we showed the movie last night, and we had a standing ovation. And I think that, you know, we hoped that we would have that reaction. And I think so many people felt a connection to these people. And they asked the same question at our Q&A. They asked, have you kept up with some of these people?
Yeah. Well, congratulations,
Thank you.
you guys. It was nice meeting you.
Nice to meet
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.